Hello and welcome to episode number 8 of our Quality Quick Tip series. My name is Jeff Watson and I am a program coordinator with the Research, Planning, and Evaluation Division of the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services. As always, after you watch the video, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please contact dhhs.cqi@nebraska.gov. The new required contacts documentation options allow you to specifically choose which type of contact you want to enter, whether it be from a face-to-face contact with a child to your efforts to find an absent non-custodial parent. Correctly documenting the required contacts for a family can help you show your active engagement with the family's active voice and their participation in a case, and your concerted efforts to engage or locate a family member. In this video, we will be covering all the required contact types and when you should select them to enter for the correct type of contact. Also, attached to this quick tip email, there are basic instructions on the requirements for required contacts, including what must be documented during a face-to-face visit. The first set of required contact narratives include ways to document your private visits with the children in your master case. As a reminder for this section, contact must also be documented with siblings of state wards, which would be documented under their own required contact. The first required contact type is private visit with child in residence. This item is chosen when you had a private face-to-face contact with the child in their placement, whether that be in the home, foster home, or other setting where they live. This type of contact should only be used when you have seen the youth privately, which is required for youth 18 months and older. Remember, for nonverbal youth, make sure to document their growth and development and your observations of their behavior. The second required contact item type is private visit with child non-residents. Like the previous type, you would select this type of required contact when you have a private face-to-face contact with a child, but in this case, it is not in their current placement. Examples would include visits with children at a school, at a therapist's office, or other professional setting. The same rules for private visits must be followed as the previous contact type. The third required contact type is private phone call to child. For policy expectations, it is still required that all children in the home should be seen privately each month. When circumstances occur that a phone call is the only type of contact that could be made with the child, the worker would select this field. Remember to document the duration of the phone call and what was discussed with the child, including the child's voice. The fourth type of required contact item is the efforts to contact child. This type of contact would only be selected when you have made concerted efforts to have face-to-face contact with the child. Concerted efforts should be documented in this field and should include more than one attempt to make contact with that child. Attempts can be made by phone calls, visits to the home, sending letters, etc. The fifth required contact type is wards on runaway status. This type of contact would be selected if a youth has physically absconded from their place of residence and cannot be located. When selecting this required contact type, make sure to document your efforts to locate the youth, including contact with law enforcement if necessary. Also, double-check your placement information for the youth to ensure the runaway episode is correctly documented on NFOCUS. The second set of required contact narratives include types of ways to document your visits with the parents in your master case. There are also many various options to select from when contact with the parents was not possible for the month. As a reminder, always try to pick the most accurate type of required contact for the circumstance of your case. The sixth and seventh required contact item types are visit with mother in residence and visit with mother non-residence. These types of contacts would be selected when you actually had a face-to-face contact with the mother in the case. The difference between the two narratives is location, and you would select the appropriate contact narrative based on the contact if the contact was in the mother's home or residence or another location within the community, such as at your courthouse, your office, or a professional office. The eighth and ninth required contact item types are visit with the father in residence and visit with the father non-residence. Just like the previous two we went over, these contacts would be selected if you actually did have the face-to-face contact with the father. The difference between these two narratives, like the last item, is specific to the location of the contact. The 10th and 11th required contact item types are visits with both parent in residence and visit with both parents non-residents. These types of contacts would only be selected when face-to-face visits occurred with both parents at the same time and location. It would be important to document each parent's input separately to make sure each parent was actively involved in the face-to-face contact. Remember to select the correct contact type based on if the visit occurred in the family residence or in a different placement setting within the community. The 12th required contact item type is called phone call to parent. This type of contact would be selected when no other type of face-to-face contact occurred during the month. When selecting this contact type, make sure to document the reasons face-to-face contact did not occur, as well as what was discussed on the phone call and the mother or father's input during the call. The 13th and 14th required contact item types are efforts to locate mother, incarcerated, and efforts to locate father, incarcerated. When selecting these required contacts, make sure to document your concerted efforts to have a face-to-face contact with the parent, as well as any barriers you encounter due to their incarceration specifically. Efforts to have the face-to-face contact should include letters, phone calls, and occasionally visits throughout the month to their incarcerated area, jail or prison. The 15th and 16th required contact item types are efforts to contact mother out of state and efforts to contact father out of state. When selecting these types of required contacts, make sure to document your concerted efforts to have a face-to-face contact with the parent, as well as any barriers you encounter due to the parent living out of state. As with the previous item, your efforts to contact and engage the parent should include letters and phone calls with the out-of-state parent. The 17th and 18th required contact item types are efforts to contact mother, chose not to engage, and efforts to contact father, chose not to engage. These types of required contacts should be selected when the selected parent is refusing to engage in the case by actively refusing contact with you. Make sure that you document your concerted efforts each month to encourage those parents to participate in the case, as well as how you're going about providing that encouragement. As with previous items, your efforts can include letters and phone calls to the parent. The 19th and 20th required contact item types are for efforts to contact the mother, whereabouts unknown, and efforts to contact the father, whereabouts unknown. These types of required contacts should be selected when you've already identified the correct parent, but you're unsure of their whereabouts. In this contact type, you should be documenting your concerted efforts to locate the parent, including your use of the family parent locator system, locating other known family members if possible, or letters or phone calls if you have any sort of address. The 21st and 22nd required contact types are effort to contact the mother, other, and efforts to contact the father, other. These types of required contacts should only be selected when you've made concerted efforts to contact the parent, but none of the other specific types of barriers will fit your case circumstances. Make sure to document your concerted efforts and barriers to locate the parent that were outside of your control. The 24th and 23rd required contact item types are efforts to identify the mother and efforts to identify the father. You should only select these two types of required contacts when you have not successfully identified the mother or father in the case, but have made concerted efforts to do so. Make sure you document all your efforts with identifying the correct mother or father, including, again, using the family parent locator system, as well as contacting other relatives if possible. The next set of required contacts is specific to the provider. These required contacts are selected when there is a specific provider providing care for the children in our care, usually a relative, kinship, or agency-based foster home. Remember to document your specific conversations with foster parents about their needs as a foster parent and any observations they have of the children placed in their care. So the 25th and 26th required contact types are visit with provider in residence and visit with provider non-residence. These types of contacts should again only be documented with a provider with whom the youth are placed. Make sure to document the contact in the correct location, whether it be in the provider's residence or in a community location, as we've discussed. The 27th required contact type is phone call to provider. This type of contact should only be selected when there was no face-to-face contact for the month with the provider. Make sure to document the length of the phone call and any other pertinent information related to the provider and the youth in his or her care. The 28th required contact item type is efforts to contact provider. This should be selected as a contact type when you have made concerted efforts to contact the provider for the month, but face-to-face contact could not be made. Remember to document your concerted efforts to contact the provider for the month, as well as any specific barriers that you found that prevented the contact. You can also document attempts to stop by, phone calls, and any letters that you did send throughout the month to initiate that contact. The next required contact is specific to young adults in our care, specifically for the Bridge to Independence program. The 29th required contact type is private face-to-face with young adult. As stated before, this required contact item type is used for only cases in which we still provide services for youth that are over age 19 or over. Documentation for this context should include items pertaining to the youth that are the young adult that's in our care. There's one last type of required contact that's no longer in use, unsuccessful efforts parent. This one is still available on NFOCUS, but it's no longer used anymore due to the additional types of contacts that can be selected to document your efforts to have a face-to-face contact. So we hope this overview of the new required contact narratives has been helpful. Please remember to refer to the attachment for additional information regarding required contacts and their documentation requirements. And I want to thank you again for watching episode number 8 of our Quality Quick Tip series. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, please contact us at dhhs.cqi@nebraska.gov. Have a great day.